What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I got a few things that I want to talk to you about, couple reports that I want to go through. And I'm going to try and keep my commentary to a minimum because I want to breeze through this. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The first thing that I want to put out there is the NFL. This report is coming from CBS. NFL encouraging players to wear new face shields, but not expected to make them mandatory per report. So just real quick, before I read through the report, this is my commentary, right? I think that having more lax measures and protocols is the wrong way to go. I would be certainly more strict than less strict. But to be fair, as I said before when I first reported on this, I don't think it would really, do a whole lot, to be frank and honest with you. But I would still be more strict. I mean, you're going to have less bad results the more, on top of things you are, right? So, and the better you'll be able to contain things and whatever. So anyway, let's go ahead and just breeze through this. Earlier this month, the NFL released a new face shield designed by Oakley that was created to help stop the spread of COVID-19 when players return to the field for the 2020 season. Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson has already started wearing the new face shield as he prepares for the start of training camp. While the league wants every player to wear the face shield, the expectation is that the league will not make it mandatory, according to NFL Network's Mike Garofalo. The first version of Oakley's face shield will be available to every NFL team when players arrive for the start of training camp. At that time, players will have the opportunity to test the face shield. Oakley has already started working on an updated version as well. Dr. Jeff Crandall, chairman of the NFL's engineering committee, said that the Oakley received feedback from NFL players during the creation of the face shield. The player feedback was integral in coming up with the design. I mean, I personally, just real quick, another little small piece, I don't think it'll work because I don't think it traps or stops the particulates from leaving one person's mouth and getting to another. Oakley would start with this design and say, do you like this one better or this one? How's your field of view on this one? Again, though, it doesn't matter so much about the field of view. You can make it clear or whatever. That's not the point of it. So I kind of have a problem if they're like, I mean, okay, sure, you got it, but that's not the most important thing, whether you can see out of it. It's whether or not it's actually going to do its job and protect you from spreading the virus should you have it. At the end of the day, they did have feedback from players. This was their choice for the players they've evaluated so far. I think each player is going to have an evaluation for themselves in terms of exactly how they favor one concept versus another. Earlier this week, the NFLPA and the league agreed to implement several new protocols from the start of training camp. Players will be tested every day for the first 2 weeks of camp. According to Alan Sills, the NFL's chief medical officer, it is expected that players will need more than one negative test before being allowed to enter team facilities. After 2 weeks, the rate of positive tests for the players, coaches, and staff who are in close contact with the team will be examined. But they already told us that they're not even going to be reporting the numbers on staff. So, okay, sure. If findings show that the rate of positive tests is below 5%, testing will move to every other day. And that's part of why. They're not going to count staff, so that way the numbers aren't as high, so that way they can hopefully keep it below these thresholds so they can keep pushing on with the season as scheduled and as planned. Earlier this week, the NFLPA revealed that 59 players have tested positive for the COVID-19 at some point prior to the start of training camp. Their first numbers said 72 players had tested positive. Then they upped it to 95. Then they dropped it to 59 and said, oh, it was 95 because that included staff and other people that are not players. But we're not going to count that. So we're going to drop it to 59 because we're only going to count players. Why? That's stupid. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But okay, whatever. The NFL recently elected to cancel the 2020 preseason as teams are set to begin training camp later this month. And while the league is still intent on having its typical regular and post seasons, Las Vegas Raiders owner Mark Davis recently said that canceling the 2020 season is still a viable option, and it should be. It should be the option that they go with. I don't even know if it's safe to play. Uncertainty is the word, Davis said in an interview with ESPN.com. Everything is up in the air, and with the virus and how it will affect our league and season. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously a lot that still needs to be hashed out, but I think they need to shut down. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing because I do want to get through this as quick as possible. This also comes from Yahoo Sports, or excuse me, CBS Sports, excuse me. NFL could shut down training camps and send players home because of NFLPA negotiations holdup, per reports. Recent days have reportedly seen the NFL and NFL Players Association agree on a variety of issues pertaining to the 2020 season, including the elimination of all preseason games amid the COVID-19 pandemic. A holdup in negotiations over the economics of this season, however, could threaten the entirety of in-person training camp, which is set to begin for most teams on Monday. As reported by NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, there's a possibility the league could send players home and continue virtual learning until talks are resolved. Just real quick on this. So people, if it does end up getting shut down and the season, a lot of people are going to be bringing up the financial aspect and about how they weren't able to come to terms on the financial parts, and that's why it happened, which will, to some degree, probably in large degree, be true, but those financial issues are very coronavirus specific, right? They wouldn't have had these issues, cap related issues, trying to hold player salaries in escrow, blah, 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 blah. None of that would exist if it wasn't for the coronavirus pandemic. So if the season, if training camp or the season gets shut down, make no mistake, it's because of the pandemic. It's not because, just simply because they couldn't agree to, the measures and protocols and financial ramifications that resulted of the pandemic. It was because of the pandemic itself. Just want to make sure that's clear. What happens if there's no deal by Sunday, Pelissero said Thursday. The CBA contains a no-strike, lockout, suit clause, but with no camp schedule agreed to, the NFL could potentially inform clubs that virtual work will continue indefinitely. I mean, that's just compounds problems, but okay. The Washington Post's Mark Mask indicates the league could go a step further. Because if they did that, if they did an entirely virtual offseason, no preseason, then there's no point in having a regular season. Your players are not going to be ready for it. None of that. Your stabs are not going to be ready for it. None of it would make sense at that point. Anyway. Indicates the league could go a step further, reporting that the NFL is considering a total shutdown of camp, presumably including virtual learning. I mean, why would you include virtual learning too? Whatever. NFLPA, because then you might as well just not have a fucking season. NFLPA executive George Atala has already slammed this idea, saying the NFL set camp reporting dates before COVID-19 protocols were finalized, but has now leaked a threat to shut down. It's unclear if a total shutdown will qualify as a lockout and thus have CBA-defying implications. The NFL, of course, had already eliminated all in-person practices and workouts prior to this summer as a result of regional and national COVID-19 restrictions. Training camp was scheduled to be the first opportunity for all 32 teams to finally practice in person, albeit amid COVID-19 testing protocols just finalized by the NFL and NFLPA. In fact, many players have already begun reporting to team facilities for their first COVID-19 tests. Let's also note, though, on a national scale, we are starting to get pretty far behind on testing overall again. We're falling behind, not having enough, etc., etc. The holdup on the economic talks centers on how the NFL would navigate projected financial losses during the pandemic, which has already dictated that plenty of teams would play in front of a limited crowd, if any, this season. And of course, as we know, the NFL's proposals always lean heavily towards, we need to make as much profit as possible, while the players, the coaching staffs, and the fans have to take all the risk and have all the liability. That's their plan. Negotiations are fluid, but NFL owners continue to push for an agreement to lower the salary cap in 2020 and 2021. Proposals the NFLPA and GMs believe could lead to a rash of veteran cuts and restructures before this season. Pelissero reported the NFLPA wants to spread the financial hit through 2030 rather than taking it now. Rosters are largely set. Many teams would be scrambling to free up money somewhere. I mean, it's all just a massive disaster. But look, I mean, this is the capitalist-driven, greed-driven, power-hungry-driven world that we live in, and these are the results that you get. All right, anyway, let's keep moving through this because the next report comes from ESPN to kind of update this conversation a little bit on these negotiations going on between the NFL and NFLPA. The season's impact on future salary caps central to NFL talk. Sources say NFLPA reps to talk Friday. So it's essentially just an update to say that they are going to be talking soon, and with a couple of the points, noting that Rules for training camp acclimation period, procedures via which players could opt out of the season for coronavirus related. So, I mean, it's basically all the same shit. Really, it's the update just simply is that they expect to have continued talks on Friday. But look, it's the 23rd, right? So today, quarterbacks and injured players should have started reporting to camp. That's on top of all of the rookies now. In 5 days from now, right? So tomorrow they're supposed to have more talks, but in 5 days from now, the rest of the veterans and stuff are supposed to start reporting. So, I mean, they're definitely way behind in all of these negotiations, etc. And it's only going to keep compounding, and the problems are only going to keep getting worse as we go forward, just to end up having the season canceled ultimately, is what my prediction is. All right, one last thing here, and this one comes from Yahoo Sports. This is talking about Todd Gurley doesn't think the NFL will finish season amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't see how, he says. And before we get into that, let's note that, you know, more and more players are talking and speaking up. You know, Tom Brady's even put out a statement about how he doesn't think that the NFL is giving enough answers, etc., etc. And a lot of people, GMs, are concerned that the NFL is going to, look, I'm telling you, it's going to get shut down eventually because of how bad this thing is and how bad it's going to continue to get. I mean, especially as we get into, you know, flu season, this thing is going to ramp up yet again. We still never left the first wave, and it's going to just become even more disastrous. There's no way that they're going to be able to do this and do it safely, especially not for the duration of an entire season. So, now, to be fair, it's not set in stone yet, so I don't know, maybe they end up playing a full season somehow, some way. But my prediction, speculation is that it's going to get shut down at some point. Anyway, let's get into this and see what he has to say. A lot of folks are skeptical about the NFL's plans to pull off a season amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Count Todd Gurley among them. The new Atlanta Falcons running back weighed in on the NFL's plans, or lack thereof, to maintain player safety amid the pandemic in an interview on CBS Sports' Tiki and Tierney. He's not impressed. There's not really a proper plan, he says. It's really not structured right, to be honest, Gurley said of the league's plan. There's not really a proper plan in place that I'm comfortable with. A guy like me, I don't have a wife, I don't have any kids. You have to look at guys on the other side who have pregnant wives, kids, and a wife they go home to every single day. Yeah, and look, because and that's the thing, is it's not just the players themselves, right? There's the coaching staffs, everybody, their family members, right? You have to take all of that into your calculations and your evaluation. Anyway, players blasted NFL's lack of planning. Several players, including Houston Texans pass rusher J.J. Watt and Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson, criticized the league last week for not having a COVID-19 protocol in place just days before rookies were scheduled to report to training camp. Wilson, as Gurley alluded to, mentioned going home to his pregnant wife. NFL's response: the NFL responded on Monday with concessions to cancel the preseason and a plan to test players daily for the first 2 weeks of training camp and until the positive rate among players and staff drops below 5%. Yet they told us they're not actually going to count staff and the numbers. So, I mean, yeah, we've gone over that. There's also a plan to install face shields, etc., etc. Dire COVID-19 outlook for fall. As the NFL moves forward without any official acknowledgement that this fall might be too dangerous to play football, COVID-19 continues to grow in the United States, including hotspots in NFL cities like Houston, Miami, New Orleans, and Phoenix. All as of Thursday, not to mention California as well. As of Thursday, the United States laid claim to 4 million of the world's 15.3 million confirmed COVID-19 cases and 144,032 of the world's confirmed 626,357 coronavirus deaths. That was obviously at that time. If things don't get better before the fall, and there's no indication that they will, Gurley's not denying that football may not be feasible. You have to be prepared to not play or be prepared to have a half a season, Gurley said. If they don't do things right, we won't have a full season. Hopefully everything goes well, but I don't see how. It just doesn't sit well right now. And it's not gonna, because they're just bungling into this with only literally one point in purpose, and we've gone over this, right? The only way any of this makes any sense whatsoever is when you realize that it's only to get the profits to the multinational corporation that is the NFL and the billionaire owners. They want to make sure that they continue to rake in the billions upon billions of dollars that they would any normal year. And now their profits are getting slashed, right? If there's no season, they don't make shit, right? So, and that's unacceptable to them. But anything to get to that aim, to get to that goal is acceptable. So risking the lives of players, coaching staffs, referees, and cameramen and the fans, all of that's fine. Making sure that they pack into stadiums and make people sign waivers so that way the NFL and the owners don't have to have any kind of accountability. All of that's good, as long as the NFL and the owners continue to rake in billions upon billions of dollars. And it's gross, right? So anyway, guys, you get it. Check out the other videos on my channel. You know what I think and how I feel about it. And I continue to get proven right time and time again. It really is exhausting, like, not to sound full of myself, but it's exhausting being right all the time, because I'm constantly right about things that are terrible, because nobody ever listens when I try and give the warnings, or when people like me. It's not just me. There are definitely plenty of other people that try and ring the alarm bells, and people don't listen, and then they run full force, full steam ahead into a fucking mire and muck of fucking bullshit, and then wonder why it happened. So anyway, with that, guys, I hope you appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.